All right, we are open up to page 296 in our religion books. Who can read the title at the top of the page for us? Nice and loud. Layla.
Respecting ourselves and others.
Awesome. Would you guys agree this is a skill we need to work on?
Yes.
It definitely is, especially the respecting others. I had to talk to you guys about that yesterday afternoon when we were choosing to put our wants above the needs of our class. So it's really fitting that our religion lesson today is respecting ourselves and others. Who can read the faith-focused question for us? Nice and loud. Mackenzie.
What do the Ten Commandments teach us about loving our neighbors as we love ourselves?
Nice. So we're going to come back to that question after we're done reading. Chanel, is this reading right now? No, it is religion. So after we are done reading our religion book, we will come back to this question. All right, first paragraph. Who can read that out loud, nice and loud for us, please? Elena.
Jesus taught that there is one great commandment, which has two parts. We are to love God above all, and we are to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. In the first letter of St. John, we read that our love for God, which the first three commandments teach about, and our love for each other, people cannot be separated.
Awesome. Because who can raise their hand and tell me, what's the best way to show that you love God? What's the best way to show that? Zoe?
Praying to Him and going to church.
That's a really good way, but what's the best way? What's the best way, Allison?
Being kind to other people.
Being kind to other people. Yep. No, it's okay. Being kind to other people. So the verse that goes with that, it says, Beloved, let us love one another because love is of God. Everyone who loves is begotten by God and knows God. Whoever is without love does not know God, for God is love. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also must love one another. No one has ever seen God. Yet if we love one another, God remains in us, and his love is brought to perfection in us. John chapter 4, verses 7 through 8 and 11 through 12. Turn and talk with the people around you about that verse that I just read out loud. What does it mean? What does that mean?
I think it means if you're being disrespectful or not kind to others, every single person is a face of God. So if you're being not kind to others, you're not loving others. Yeah, you're not loving others.
Hey, Frankie and Mackenzie, can Emmy participate with you today?
So I just said that if you're not being kind to others and respectful to others, you're not being respectful to God. Because every single person is a face of God.
And if you don't love others, you're not loving God.
Love others.
If you don't love them.
Ready to rock. Ready to rock. Please raise your hand if you have a thought on the verse that I just read out loud from the Bible. Who would like to share their thoughts? Eosius.
It means respect other people and stuff because we're also God's creation and He gave up His Son for us.
Awesome. I love how you talked about how everyone is God's creation and they deserve respect, and the fact that God gave up His only Son for us, so we deserve to treat others with respect because of that. Who else has a thought they'd like to share? Frankie.
It's just basically if you're not kind and respectful to others, you're not being kind to God, because every single person is a face of God. And if you don't love others and be kind to them, you're not loving God.
Awesome. That's exactly right. And Frankie, I love that you said that everyone is a face of God. Do we know what God looks like?
No.
Do you think He put a little bit of Himself in each and every one of us?
Yes.
So every time you look at someone's face, it's like you're looking into the face of God, right?
Yeah.
In Wonder, Mr. Tushman said something like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
When we look at others, we are seeing the face of God. So, are we supposed to be disrespecting those different faces of God?
No.
Are we supposed to be being selfish towards those other faces of God? Putting our wants above other faces of God's needs. No. Eosius.
I've also seen like things where it's just like every person you meet is in disguise.
Yes, I love that you brought that quote up. Every person you meet is Jesus in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. In a lot of our Bible stories, angels or God have appeared to people in disguise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they always known they were talking to God or an angel of God? So who's to say you haven't come into contact with an angel of God without knowing it? Let's say you pass away, and at the end of your life, you go to heaven, and maybe in heaven, before you go through the gates of heaven, you replay your life, and it's revealed to you that you truly encountered an angel or a person of God in that way, and you ignored them, or you were mean to them, you excluded them, you ignored them. How would that make you feel? Right? If you think about it that way. But the thing is, does someone have to be an angel of God to deserve respect? No. Because like Frankie said, every face you meet is a face of God. So every face you meet deserves respect. Nice job, you guys. That's a great discussion. Next, it says, Jesus taught us who our neighbor is. Our neighbor is every living person other than ourselves, including our enemies. So does that mean we're supposed to treat our enemies with respect? So does that mean when you're getting into an argument with someone, are you still supposed to try and be respectful? Can you disagree respectfully? Can it be hard sometimes to disagree respectfully? There's always that line, right? When you're having a disagreement with someone, if you cross that line, you're suddenly being disrespectful, right? But if we don't cross that line and we're respectful about our opinion and someone else's different opinion, then we can disagree respectfully, right? Yeah. Who can read that verse that goes with being respectful to everyone, including our enemies? Who can read that verse out loud for us? Nice and loud. Max.
You've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. And I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your heavenly Father. For he makes his sun rise on the bad and the good, and causes rain to fall on the just and the unjust.
Awesome. It says, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Talk to the people around you. What does that mean?
That means
Like, even though if someone doesn't like you, that doesn't give you the right to just like go and hate them. Like, you haven't even got to know them. You can't hate someone because they don't like you. You gotta get to know them before you just start hating them.
Like, so does that mean my sister
Yeah, but
Are we supposed to write these?
so technically these are workbooks, but we only bought one set per class, so we try to use them as textbooks. So we don't write in them. That's why we laminated them. Mm-hmm. All right, 3, 2, 1, 0. Who would be willing to raise their hand and share their thoughts on that question? What does, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you? What does that mean? What does that mean, Philip?
It means you're kind to your enemies, or try to be a little bit kinder than necessary to them, if they're not kind to you.
Yes.
And I don't know what persecute means.
Can anyone raise their hand and tell us what persecute means? Richie?
Kill.
That's one way. That's one way. But
That's what I thought.
if you persecute someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you kill them. What does it mean? What does it mean, Max?
Kind of like what they did to Jesus before they killed him. They like judged him, or like they put him in like court.
They judged him and they kind of targeted him, right? Have there been groups of people who've been persecuted in our nation's history?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you can think of one. We learned about some when we were learning about the establishment of this country. Who was persecuted? Frankie?
Was it MLK?
Well, okay, Martin Luther King Jr. is a person who was in a way persecuted, but why was he persecuted? Why was he persecuted? Emmy?
I forgot what I was saying.
Why was he persecuted? Allison?
Because he had black skin.
Because he was black. So, I mean, guys, a part of being an American is, I mean, we're so lucky to have so many rich cultures in our country, right? But we also have to recognize that at the founding of our country, and we learned about this, were we accepting of everyone?
No.
We persecuted people based on how they looked, right? So, yes, African Americans was one group. What was another group we really persecuted when we were establishing this country? Chanel?
Jewish.
Who was here before us? Chanel?
Native Americans.
Native Americans. Did the colonists persecute them?
Yes.
They were here, and we came, and we didn't care. We took everything from them. We took their land. We took their lives. We even took their culture. You'll learn about this in high school, but it wasn't enough for the colonists to take their land and their lives. But the people who remained, they were forcing them to basically be white. They weren't allowed to practice their traditions, their culture, their spirituality. What does that sound a lot like to you? What other group in the world history wasn't able to practice their religion, their culture, their spirituality? Mackenzie? Jewish people. Who else? Frankie? That's okay. Who else? Max?
Just people that came to countries that say that they were
Mhm.
people that came to China. Sometimes they would like say, no, you can't do this when you're here, but when
So what do we call people who come to a new country? What do we call them? Frankie?
Immigrants.
Immigrants. Often immigrants. Philip? Who else?
aliens,
What?
aliens.
Yeah. That's one word for it, but immigrants. Yeah. So, does our world have a history of, good morning, Addie, persecuting people who are different? Yes. Now I want you to turn and talk to the people around you. How can we change that? How can you guys change that? Turn and talk.
Like basically just like if someone like let's say you have a friend
loving
that
everybody.
doesn't the same beliefs, let's say they have totally different beliefs, like they're Jewish and you're Catholic. You still gotta be their friend, like just because they have a different religion. Doesn't give you right.
I don't want to be your friend. You're older than me. I would look through your books, and if they were long enough, I'll let
That's what you need, okay?
I was like, so shoes I went.
All right, raise your hand. What can you guys do to help make the world a little bit of a better place than you found it? What can you do to help stop the persecution of people simply because they're different from you? What can you do? Layla?
Treat others how you want to be treated.
Treat others the way you want to be treated. That has a lot to do with empathy, right? Thinking about, well, I want to be treated this way. So how do they want to be treated? Probably the same way I want to be treated. What else, Emmy?
Be the bigger person.
Being the bigger person. That means someone maybe has different viewpoints than you, whether they're political, religious, an opinion on how to play a game. Does that mean you instantly get into a fight with that person?
No.
You be the bigger person. You can, a phrase, I agree to disagree. I've heard the phrase so many times. You know, I don't agree with you, but thank goodness we live in a country where we can disagree without there being a punishment. So respecting that person's opinion. Yes. What else? Richie?
Don't judge them by what they look like on the outside.
Don't judge them by what they look like on the outside. That's a big one. That's been a big theme this year, right? In a lot of our books. Yeah. Don't judge a book by its cover. Zoe?
Don't judge them by the way they look.
Mm-hmm.
For
Just
example,
in general. Mm-hmm.
if they look different from you,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you just say that you don't want to be their friend.
Yes.
Get to know them.
Yes, exactly. And I know how many of you, when we talk about that, what Zoe just said, how many of you instantly start thinking about like cultures and nationalities? Like that's what you're thinking of. That's a big part of it. But I want to tell you, when I was in college, they were telling us, if you were to get a tattoo, try not to get it a place that's visible with your normal clothes because your employer might not hire you because of it. Now, 5th grade, if I had a tattoo on my wrist that you could see, does that change the kind of teacher I am?
No.
But someone can make a snap instant judgment about me and not hire me because of it. I'm not saying St. Joe's School would do that, but they were telling us that could happen. Is that right? No. So it's not even just the color of our skin, the color of our hair. It's something as simple as that as well. Sometimes people judge you based on something like that. What else can we do, Frankie?
Well, it's just like when Hitler came in and said Jewish people, they're causing all these problems for Germany. It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So what would you tell to the people who maybe didn't agree with Hitler but weren't speaking up?
Well, I think they should have speaked up.
They should have spoken up.
People that like the Jewish people, they couldn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice for that. They were just brought in to these camps and they couldn't do anything. But the people that could do something, they should have done something.
Yeah, they should have. And there were people doing things, but it took a while, right? Yes. What else can we do, Max?
We can try to get to know them instead of kind of what Zoe said, but
Yes.
just as soon as you see them, nope, I'm not gonna be here. I don't want you to be my friend. Try to get to know them.
Yes. Yes. There's a statistic, don't quote me on it. It's something like it takes 2 seconds for you to make an instant judgment of someone. Whether it's a good or a bad judgment. That's kind of what our brain does as soon as we meet someone new. We're taking in all this new information, right? It's a new person, there's new information. What they look like, what they sound like, what they're saying. Does that mean you have to just only go off of that instant judgment or analysis? Let's call it that analysis your brain makes. No, it's up to you. It's your decision. Even if you're like, they said something kind of weird. Does that mean you instantly can't like them? No, it's your choice to decide if you get to know them more, right? Just because our brain's analyzing this new person doesn't mean because of that analysis you don't get to know who they are. That's your choice. Will?
The only thing that matters about people is their personality.
Yes. How many of you have ever watched a movie where there's a person who maybe they're beautiful or handsome, but their personality, they're mean, they're selfish, they're greedy. Do you like that person in that movie? No. It's the people who have kind, funny, genuine, honest personalities that we want to know more about, right? Exactly. Chanel.
It kind of reminds me of the book that I'm reading.
Yes.
And, there's a girl, her name is Mia. She came to America from China as an immigrant. She was here for 3 years, and then she went to a school, and since she was shopped at Goodwill, her pants weren't she didn't have any jeans, and she has to have her own job. when she works. So
Yeah.
she works. So when she goes to school, like her boss's son always makes fun of her because since they're both Chinese, he keeps saying they're related, and he said he's
Taiwanese?
Yeah, Taiwanese.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went to the bathroom, and there was a bunch of girls like bullying her because of her pants.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw her at the store. She's like, if you're gonna shop here, you have to buy jeans because that outfit just makes you look like a hobo. And they were being really mean to her.
Yeah, just because of her clothes. Yeah. Addie.
I know in the movie Escape from Mr. Longshaw's Library,
Yeah.
Charles is like that. He looks super nice and fun to hang out with, but he's really just a jerk.
Exactly. So, in our book, to end, it says God calls us to love everyone, all our neighbors in God's eyes. The 10 Commandments help us live this part of the Great Commandment. The 4th through the 10th Commandments teach us about our love for others and for ourselves. So 5th grade, we've talked a lot about how the commandments are like God's rules for us, right? What's at the center of every single rule? What's at the center of every single rule or commandment? What is it, Max? It all boils down to one word. Turn and talk. What is that one word? Starts with an L. Ends with an E. Ready to rock? Ready to rock? On the count of 3, tell me, what does every single one of our commandments boil down to? 1, 2, 3. Love. Whether it's our love for ourselves, our love for our neighbors, or our love for who? God. Nice work today, 5th grade.